So, do atheists know words, or is this just yet another attempt by the religious to rationalize their way around their own problems? I'll let you decide that, but today we're going to see some pretty damning proof, so take that as you will. I don't think it's us that don't know how words work. I think it's the religious. And really, this is all the proof that we need. This is our last check-in with Inspector Gadfly, and I think we saved the best for last. Granted, the last video was kinda hard to top, but he goes completely off the rails here, and I think it's funny how he just ignores all of the problems and just talks his way around them. I mean, really, what else can he do? It's not like he can accept the problems of Christianity. He's just gotta defend it by making himself look like a complete idiot. Because he is. And I hope you enjoy the last bit of proof that we need that this guy has a lot of problems.
Some complain that my arguments are not targeted at atheists.
Well, duh. You don't even mention atheists at all most of the time, which I think is kind of funny because you're supposed to be showing where we're the ones going wrong. And let's be honest, this has all been a giant exercise in showing where Inspector Gadfly himself is just wrong about pretty much everything. This isn't really trying to convince atheists that they're wrong, though, because clearly that's not his intent. This is just meant to reinforce the faith of the four, yes, count them, 4 subscribers, because nobody else takes this jackass seriously. If you want to convince us that we're wrong, you gotta actually talk to us. You gotta actually talk about us in some meaningful, rational, defensible way. And you can't do that. So, yeah, I'd say that's a pretty valid complaint, wouldn't you?
Perhaps they need to see the series from the beginning. You can watch the entire series by clicking the card or the letter I in the circle at the top right.
We have. We've looked at your entire series, and the criticism still stands. You aren't making videos for the people that you're trying to accuse of doing something wrong. You're just making them for people on your own side so that they can crowd around you and clap at your straw man. And this is true of virtually all religious videos. It is. We've seen it time and time again. And I've had people say, well, that's not true. We're really trying to talk to you. No, you're not. Because if you were trying to talk to us, you'd actually talk to us. You'd actually make videos that made some kind of rational sense, and you people just can't do that. Now, in this case, that's not working out because at the moment, he's got absolutely no upvotes at all on this video, and all of the comments are very, very negative. Because the people that he's supposedly talking to, which we all know he's not really talking to, but the people he's supposedly talking to all think he's full of crap. Maybe you might want to rethink your strategy. Just saying.
This is true at the time of this recording. In a taped interview with a Christian, an atheist asked why he was a believer. The believer replied,
"It is a gift."
At that point, the video went on to explain how the believer had the gift of credulity.
Yeah, but that's not something that you ought to be proud of. It's just admitting that you're overly gullible and willing to believe absolutely anything that coddles your own pathetic feelings. And while, yes, that does describe the religious just fine, it isn't something that they ought to be wanting to admit to. It's like admitting that you're an idiot. Now, granted, most of these people don't have to admit that because it's bloody obvious, but still, you're all doing intelligence wrong. Knock it off.
In other words, he had the ability of believing nonsense. The atheist betrayed his ignorance. He seemed not to know the way in which the word was being used.
You mean as it's actually defined? Because I went looking and I couldn't find any online dictionary where the word was defined in any other way. Maybe this is a you problem, Gadfly. Maybe you people ought to stop using words incorrectly, because this kind of thing happens all the time, and then, no surprise, they turn around and point at everyone else who points out that that's not what these words actually mean, and pretend that they're wrong. Maybe you people ought to get your nose out of the Bible and your heads out of the clouds and come on down to earth with the rest of us. Maybe you won't look like such complete idiots then.
The Merriam-Webster dictionary could have helped him. Here are two meanings. 1. A notable capacity, talent, or endowment. That is the definition that the atheist interviewer assumed that the Christian was using for the word gift.
No, it wasn't the word gift that we were talking about. It was the word credulity. All you're doing here is pretending that being a gullible dumbass is a good thing. You are defending ignorance because that's what marks your entire religious belief system. And that's kind of a problem, at least if you think anyone ought to take you at all seriously, which most of you people just don't care. And these people are pretty proud being imbeciles. They like the idea because it makes them happy. And then they point to us and pretend that we're doing it all wrong. Seriously, if you pay the slightest bit of attention to the words that are coming out of your mouth, you will see that you are indeed a moron. I don't think you figured that out because I don't think you pay any attention. It's not exactly a surprise.
Here is the correct meaning. 2. Something voluntarily transferred by one person to another without compensation. That is how the word gift was being used.
Yet you are missing the entire point, which, again, not exactly a surprise here because he's proven he's not that smart. So we'll go back to the title of his video, something about us not knowing words. We do know words though. Like in the last video where he accused us of not doing any research, we're the only ones that actually do any of that. This is just the religious desperately trying to spin their bizarre beliefs in a way that benefits them, while not actually understanding that everything that they're doing just makes them look bad. But yeah, go ahead, Gadfly, you're only hurting your own case. Keep sticking your foot in your own mouth. Because why not? This ought to be fun.
This is where the atheist went wrong. In playing chess, this mistake would be called a blunder. YouTube is rife with such blunders. Most Christians believe that God has no obligation to save them or anyone else.
And you notice that he continues to entirely miss the second word there, right? Because he doesn't actually care. This is all about idiotic faith and not at all about objective reality. These people just aren't concerned. So long as they get that chemical hit in the noggin, they're happy, and happiness is really all they care about. It doesn't matter if that makes them look like a complete fool, because it does. It always does. They just want to feel good, and that's all that matters. And that's really, really stupid when you think about it, and that's why they don't.
The giver has the right or power to give. God gives the ability to believe. The other side of the coin is terrifying. God has the right to not give the gift to anyone.
There's no evidence at all that there are any gods, period. That's the part that the religious just can't get through their tiny little heads. We don't have any reason to take anything that they say seriously, yet they can't bring themselves to ask the most basic questions. Why should we accept the existence of any god, much less theirs? Why should we accept that there is a gift at all? Yeah, those questions go unanswered because they have no answers, only faith and the desperate desire to believe for the sake of belief. So what's the point? Really, what is the point? Because I'm not seeing it, and they can't explain.
If you agree with me so far, click the like button.
Just noting real quick that absolutely nobody has clicked the like button. Kind of funny how that works, isn't it?
There is another word, faith. Here is one of many definitions of faith found in the dictionary.
Wait a minute. Faith was never in that initial claim, so he's just gone completely off the rails, which is hardly a surprise, given that this is Inspector Gadfly. But the only definition of faith that matters is the one given in the Bible. Hebrews 11:1 says, "Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see." In other words, it's being credulous for the sake of your feelings, not seeking out evidence or confirmation that the things that you believe are actually true. He's going to pull up a bunch of definitions, but none of them refer to religious faith, I'm sure. So we'll see what he comes up with next, and I bet you it's not going to be impressive.
Firm belief in something for which there is no proof. Indeed, this definition is often assumed to be the only definition. Here is a comical definition of faith. Faith is believing what you know ain't so.
Mark Twain. Of course, when it comes down to theists like Gadfly here, he's too dumb to know that the things he believes just ain't so. He just believes blindly. And I think where Twain went wrong was by underestimating the stupidity of the hardcore believer. These people don't actually know anything. They just believe it. They don't care about knowledge. Knowledge is entirely irrelevant. They just blindly believe it because it strokes their egos. And that's kind of pathetic, isn't it?
That came from Mark Twain. If that was the only definition of faith, a lot of marriages are in big trouble. Let's get back to the task at hand.
Wait a minute. He brought up the definition of faith in dictionaries, and then he didn't even produce a single dictionary definition. Seriously? So we'll oblige him with a single example, this one coming from the American Psychological Association. Their definition of religious faith is as follows: belief and trust in a deity or other spiritual force seen as setting standards of conduct, responding to prayers, and typically assuring the ultimate triumph of good over evil. Religious faith may be intensely private in some of its aspects, but it usually involves the believer's adherence to a particular religious body and an organized system of ceremonies and doctrines. Most theologians in monotheistic traditions insist that faith involves an orientation of the entire personality toward God rather than merely intellectual acceptance of certain teachings. Note the part at the end there, that belief in God rather than the intellectual acceptance of certain teachings. In other words, they don't care if it's actually true. It's just there to coddle their fifis. And that's not exactly a surprise, is it?
We need to define faith. Let's break it up into three components: notitia, assensus, and fiducia. Notitia are the data, if you will.
And I trust that you'll have absolutely none of that. Data is by definition objective, and the religious don't have any. They only have what they want to be true, not what they can actually demonstrate is true. They don't care about that part of it at all. If it's true, who gives a crap? They only want to feel good. It's what happens when you can't figure out that there are things outside of your silly book. And that's why they continually make such utter fools of themselves. And we saw that in the last video, and he's continuing on with that in this. This guy has problems. This guy has lots of problems. And while it's very, very easy to see that Inspector Gadfly has some things going wrong upstairs, he's not really any different than any other theist out there. It's just more obvious. They've all got the same kind of problems.
In this case, the notitia refer to the Bible. The Bible makes the extraordinary claim that Jesus is God. If, say, the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, which is extraordinary evidence for the extraordinary claim, convinces you that Jesus is God, then you would be agreeing that the claim is true.
Yeah, but that's not how any of this works, because it doesn't really matter what convinces you. It matters what is objectively so in the real world. If you look up in the sky and see lights, and for some reason that convinces you that aliens from Alpha Centauri are here to shove tubes right up your ass, that doesn't actually mean that that's true. It just means that you're a credulous idiot. That's really where we run into so many problems with these religious fools. Just because you read about Harry Potter in a book, that doesn't mean that Hogwarts exists, no matter what kind of an emotional high you get from the idea. You are just being dumb. You don't comprehend how to intelligently and rationally evaluate claims to see if they stand up to any kind of critical scrutiny. Because, newsflash for you, Gadfly, none of the supernatural claims in the Bible ever do. But of course, these people don't care. And then they look at us, people who are not going to look at their silly book of mythology and say, well, I buy into that. And they claim we've got it wrong. Because we're not coddling their fee-fees. Because we aren't idiots.
Many people get off the train here. If you believe the extraordinary claim that Jesus is God, you've reached the second part of faith. At this point, the Bible tells us that the demons believe and shudder. If you believe this, congratulations.
Yes, you've just taken all leave of your senses. Because the religious, for some reason I will never understand, but the religious are proud to be dumb. They are proud to believe things for which they can offer absolutely no objective evidence. If it strokes their egos, then it's got to be true, right? Yet you can do that for absolutely anything. Every religion does. That's how they all work. It says so in the Quran, therefore it has to be true. Yet I'm sure that Inspector Gadfly here doesn't believe that, does he? No, it's only the sources that he personally buys into that matter. The ones that he doesn't like, well, those are wrong, even though they're doing the exact same thing that he is. Because according to the faithful, everything else is bunk. Well, here's a snippet of truth for you, Gadfly. It's all bunk. Every last bit of it, until it can be backed up with objectively verifiable evidence. And it's really too bad that everything that you believe simply can't be.
You can pal around with demons. In Latin, you have reached the level of ascensus. The other aspect of the resurrection is that God the Father accepted God the Son's sacrifice of himself to save those who believe in the sense of fiducia. This is the all-in level.
This is where you just stop giving a damn about anything that makes sense and just go on pure fee-fees. And this is why it's such a complete waste of time to bother with the religious most of the time, because you just can't have an intelligent, rational, evidence-based discussion with them. They simply aren't concerned. They aren't remotely interested. They're out of their ever-loving gourds most of the time. Now, Gadfly here might be among the worst of the bunch because he's clearly got some significant brain damage that's keeping him from being able to think intellectually about his beliefs, but he's come to YouTube to make a complete fool of himself and show just how asinine he actually is. And there's a lot of people out there just like Gadfly. They might not be quite as obvious about it, but they have the same kind of problems, whether they actually have screws loose in their head or not. Because we know a lot of theists who do that, right? Who come here, make videos, and just embarrass themselves totally. Because, as we all know, they just don't care. You can't make this stuff up, folks. It's all sitting there, right there on the screen. These people have problems, mental, philosophical, or otherwise. And maybe a lot of them ought to seek some professional help, because it's really pretty clear that they need it.
At the fiducia level of faith, if it is all a sham, you have thrown your life away for nothing.
You know, I was worried for an instant there that he might actually make some kind of sense in the last video, but I can now see that I had absolutely nothing to worry about. This guy has some problems, some serious, serious problems. And I'm not here to make fun of him for those problems, because he is not alone, not remotely. I mean, some might say I'm taking some unnecessarily cruel shots at somebody with a disability, but I'm not, because this is the kind of thing that tons and tons and tons of theists actually believe, problems or not. This is what religion does to you, folks. This is what religion is. Once you reach this level of delusion, you run out of excuses, and I'm not going to take it easy on anybody just because they might be a little bit questionable upstairs. These people are dumb, And these people are dangerous. And while Gadfly here has absolutely no following, and there's no risk of him actually polluting the minds of innocent young people, and yes, he is little more than a laughingstock, there are plenty of them out there that believe the same kind of thing and who are a bit more articulate and who do, unfortunately, slip under the radar. But really, when you think about it, they're all this bad. All of them. There really aren't any exceptions. There are people who look worse, but they're all pretty bad. These people are a hazard to us all, and it's about time we stopped giving them a pass and started calling them out for what they are. Lunatics. Dangerous lunatics. They are a danger to themselves and to others because this kind of lunacy can spread. We've seen it in the real world. It's not just the religious that can do this, but I think the religious are leading the pack. It's time to stop pretending otherwise. Stupidity needs to stop. Stupidity needs to be addressed for what it is, and we need to stop giving these people a pass and saying, well, they're not hurting anybody, because they are. So, who's with me? Who wants to see this crap go away? Let me know in the comments below.
Boom, dicky, 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 boom.